What's up, everybody? You guys are at the right spot. This is the modern day arm care for the baseball and softball player. We're going to cover topics related to keeping your arm and your body healthy. So, I'm really excited for you to be joining me on here right now. I want to know if you are having any pain or if you know of anybody else that is having any kind of pain. And I want you, if you know somebody, I want you to keep them in mind. If this is yourself, really feel how this is going to apply to you. Okay, all of this information that I'm going to give to you that you're going to learn this evening, you can implement it immediately. It's all usable stuff. So I'm excited for you to be here. You're in the right spot. My name is Dr. Chris McKenzie, board certified sports and orthopedic physical therapist. And why don't we get started? All right. So to keep you safe and improve upon your high level of performance, we are going to cover topics related to warming up, cooling down and static stretching, post-throwing protocols, conditioning, and nutrition. A lot of people don't think that conditioning and nutrition belong in the arm care, arm health, keep your body safe continuum or program, and they do. They very much do so. So we're definitely going to spend a little bit of time on each of those. And then we're going to touch on deceleration mechanics. I'm not huge into mechanics. That's not my expertise, but I know a little bit to be dangerous. And then that is going to segue into kinetic chain efficiency. So how mechanics kind of relate to our kinetic chain. So how one part of the body affects the other and then the other. And that gives us a very strong rationale for the strength training that we should be doing to protect our body. And then in the end, I'm going to introduce you to my complete arm care program, and then we're going to do a little Q&A, and we're going to wrap it up there. So hang on tight. I want you guys to, if you don't have already, get a piece of paper and a pencil and get ready to take some notes, jot some stuff down because you're going to need it for later. All right, let's go. So why should you care? Well, I'm glad that you on here with me because I know that you do care, or you're trying to care at least. But this is why you should care, because medial elbow pain or inside elbow pain on the inside part of the elbow is present in almost 70% of players aged 9 to 19. And then 30% of players with medial elbow pain, so that inside pain on their elbow, undergo UCL or ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction or Tommy John surgery every year. That is crazy. And shoulder pain is present in about 32% of youth players. Now this stat's a little bit older. It's from 2001. And I would imagine that it has grown. It might be starting to steady off a little bit now, but that's probably definitely up around where the medial elbow pain is. Maybe just a little bit below that from the numbers that I see in my clinic. So that's why you should care, because I know that this doesn't have to be you. You don't have to be laying down on the field with medical professionals all around you wondering how you are, okay? You don't have to be sitting down with your shoulders slumped, your head down on the bench wondering what went wrong and why you have to sit on the bench because you're not, every time you go to throw, it hurts. You don't have to be packing your ice or packing your shoulder and your elbow full of ice. You don't have to. That doesn't have to be you. You don't have to spend hundreds or thousands of dollars in medical bills and copays and going to PT for weeks on end to rehab a major injury or even a small one. That doesn't have to be you. I know it does not. And I just want to start off with a case to illustrate where we're going to go, what you can be, okay, if you're having pain now, or if you're not in pain, or if you're just trying to prevent pain and significant injury from happening. So this is a case of a 17-year-old right-handed baseball player who complained of shoulder pain while throwing 100% effort from the outfield. He had physical therapy for 12 weeks with another provider, not with myself, focusing on concentric rotator cuff, scapular, and core strengthening. So concentric is just a muscle contraction where the muscle shortens. So if you can imagine pulling a gallon of milk out of the fridge, if we look at the bicep muscle kind of shrinks up there. It shortens up, but it pops up like Popeye. So that's a concentric muscle contraction. So he had conservative PT for 12 weeks, and he failed that. He was still having pain. So he got another MRI, which showed, or he got a MRI, which showed an avulsed shoulder ligament. So this is often called a Hagel lesion, a humeral avulsion of the glenohumeral ligament, one of them. And that's where a piece of the ligament kind of rips off the bone a little bit. Pretty painful. So that's what the MRI showed. The family was told from that surgery was the best course of action from 3 different orthopedists. Well, they said no way. They wanted to see whatever they could do to prevent this. So they were referred to me specifically for an eccentric strength training program. They weren't necessarily referred that. That's what I ended up giving him. This young man had great range of motion, good flexibility. He had some scapular dyskinesia, so his scapula wasn't moving perfectly, but nonetheless, he looked relatively good, but he was still having this pain. So he was referred to me for this eccentric strength training program, and then 1 week later, after performing this program, he could throw from the outfield at 100% effort without any kind of pain. Just 1 week later, which is totally awesome. And then at a 6-month follow-up on a special arm care program, it was found that he was throwing just shy of 300 feet without any kind of pain. So, excuse that. And so imagine if you are having any kind of pain, imagine what a good arm care program can do for you. A good, well-rounded program. If you're not in any pain, think of what a good arm care program can keep you from having. So awesome stuff. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background of who I am. Again, my name is Chris McKenzie. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I am double board certified in both sports and orthopedics. I grew up just outside of Philadelphia in a town called Harleysville, Pennsylvania. Stayed in the home state for college. Got my bachelor's in kinesiology from Penn State. And then I guess I stayed in the home state for grad school. Yeah, I'm just putting all this together. So, and I have been a physical therapist. I graduated from Drexel in 2007. So that's where I got my clinical doctorate. So I've been practicing clinician for about 8 years. About a year. Actually, when I was in Drexel, I had a really, really great rotation out in Scottsdale, Arizona. Trained under some of the best clinicians, Todd Ellenbecker, John Andreka. Learned a ton about the shoulder and the elbow. Worked with a lot of athletes out there, professional athletes, amateur athletes, treating both the shoulder and the elbow. It was a great, great rotation. So then after that, I graduated, and then about a year after, when I was out in the working world, Drexel asked me if I wanted to come back and be an adjunct professor. So I started to work in some labs and teach the first year and second year PT students on how to measure stuff and measure range of motion. And so I'm not doing that a whole lot now. I'm more just working in their clinical practice, where we work with student athletes, NCAA athletes, pretty much every day. So, and then a couple years ago, I started my own clinic, and I'm so vain, I guess. I named it McKenzie Sports Physical Therapy. I really wasn't sure what else to name it, but I've had the pleasure of treating a lot of athletes from a lot of the ball clubs that you see below and even more. So I definitely feel very blessed to have the opportunities that I've had that have led me to where I'm at right now. So I'm extremely grateful. All right, so let's jump into this, okay? Enough about me, enough about this introduction stuff. Warming up, okay? You first need to ask yourself a question. You need to ask yourself the question, do you have assessed or known areas of tightness? So has somebody looked at you and said that you are tight, or are there tight areas on your body? More than likely, the answer is going to be yes, okay? It just happens, okay? If yes, you need to statically stretch or perform soft tissue work first. Now, static stretching is the old like bend over and touch your toes, and you're going to stretch your hamstrings and probably your low back. It's not really the best way to get those muscles, but nevertheless, that's a static stretch. Soft tissue work is anything from receiving a massage to rolling around on the foam roller to receiving a active release type technique, which is very effective. So you definitely need to ask yourself, do you have assessed or known areas of tightness? And if yes, you need to stretch them out first because they are tight. Okay, tight, we need to stretch them out. If no, then you can go directly into a dynamic warm-up, but this is rare, especially if you've reached puberty already. Now, if you're a male and you've reached puberty, males get tighter when they go through puberty. They're pretty mobile when they haven't gone through it, when they hit puberty, and they start to get tighter. Females, on the other hand, you softballers out there, females are generally, they're not super tight, before they hit puberty or anything. They're just pretty much the same as boys of the equivalent age. But when girls hit puberty, they actually get more lax. Their joints get a little bit more lax. So girls may be able to go directly into a dynamic warm-up, but you should definitely be assessed first. But it is rare. So we know from studying hundreds and thousands of athletes that when you throw, your muscles get tight and you lose mobility. It's just kind of like going to the gym, right? If you go to the gym and you do bicep curls all the time and you don't stretch afterward, your biceps get really tight and it becomes hard to completely straighten your elbow. Okay, well, the same thing happens when you throw. Specific muscles on the stride leg hip and the back of your throwing shoulder, even on the front side of your forearm and your elbow, they get tight from throwing because those muscles have a tremendous amount of force that goes through them, mainly to slow you down, but there's also muscles that help to speed you up, those propulsive muscles. So there's specific areas on the body that get really tight that they need to be stretched out. Okay, so static stretching actually lengthens the muscle. Dynamic warming up prepares the body for how it's about to move. Now, baseball and softball players move explosively, so you need to do a explosive dynamic warm-up. Dynamic warm-ups do not improve flexibility. Only static stretching can improve your flexibility and soft tissue work. So you should always end your warm-up with a dynamic routine, a dynamic movement. So you want to first stretch your muscles out to the point where they're going to be their longest, and then you can do a dynamic warm-up on top of that to prepare your body to move. So here are some commonly tight areas in the baseball and softball player. The back of the shoulder. So the back of the shoulder is represented by the posterior rotator cuff, okay, the external rotators of the shoulder. Specifically, these muscles are helpful to slow your arm down when you're throwing. I'm not sure if that concept is new to you for throwing, but we don't impart all the force that we create from the ground up and convert it through our torso up to our arm. We try to impart as much of that onto the ball as we can, but there's always a lot that's left over, and that's in our body. So our body has to slow our arm down so we don't get hurt, okay? And specifically with baseball, it is the fastest, most violent movement in sports. So those external rotators, if they get tight, they limit the opposite range of motion. So if external rotators that produce external rotation are tight, they limit your internal rotation. So that would be if you were trying to reach behind your back, okay, or actually reach across your body as well. That is internal rotation. And a study in 2015 by Shanley looked at preseason shoulder range of motion screening and found that if there was a loss of just 13 degrees of internal rotation on your throwing shoulder compared with your non-throwing shoulder, if you were lacking just 13 degrees, okay, it's not a whole lot, that there was a significant injury among youth and adolescent baseball pitchers. Now, this is a risk for baseball pitchers because they throw harder with more intent more often, but you position players out there, you can bet this is still a problem for you. Okay, and the youth and adolescents, the age range in this study was from 8 to 18 years. You can do this stretch 3 to 4 times for 20 seconds each. Now, there is a right way and a wrong way to do the sleeper stretch. The wrong way is on the left. So you want to lie down on your side, but you cannot roll off your shoulder too much like I am on the left there. My body's kind of angled towards the back, and I'm able to push my forearm down towards the table there, but my shoulder and my shoulder blade are popping up towards my ear. Look at that image on the right, compare and contrast them. I'm rolled on my shoulder just a little bit more, and now I'm blocking my scapula and shoulder from popping up, and I'm getting a good stretch on the back of my shoulder on those external rotators to improve my internal rotation. So make sure you're taking some notes here. Okay, take a screenshot of this if you can, and because I definitely want you to be able to perform this the right way. Now you can see on the left, my forearm gets way down towards the table. Compare that with the one on the right where my forearm isn't even close. Now I'm getting a good stretch because I'm blocking the areas that need to be blocked. So that is how you do it. So moving on to the lat stretch in the doorway. So the lat, or the lat, also short for the latissimus dorsi, and a muscle that's smaller but does the same action called your teres major, can often be tight, and it can limit how high you can reach your arm up overhead. So a good way to tell this, so if you can get on the ground here, and same thing with the sleeper stretch there if you want to give that a shot, but if you can lie down on the ground and then lie down completely flat on your back and then raise both of your arms up overhead, just completely back behind your head there with your elbows completely straight, and you don't get a arch in your low back and you don't get an arch in your upper back, and your arms can hit the ground, then your lats are probably pretty flexible. But if they can't, they're probably pretty tight. Either that or your tricep as well. So this is a good way to stretch them out. You just kind of find a doorway. So if you're near a doorway, you can try this also. Turn up the volume here so you can hear me. So get your feet close to the frame of the doorway and kind of grab the frame with your one hand. So I'm stretching my right lat. So I'm reaching up over my head, grabbing the door frame, and then I'm leaning away. My left arm is just there to kind of support me. So this is a good stretch for your lat. You can hold this for 20 seconds. Do it 3 to 4 times. A study by Kevin Wilk in 2014 on professional baseball pitchers showed that if there was even a 5-degree loss of motion up overhead, which remember the lat allows that, then there is a significant risk of elbow injury in the professional baseball pitcher. Now this does happen in professionals, okay, but you can bet that this also applies to youth and adolescent baseball players and softball players as well. Okay, you need to have adequate ranges of motion. Now the lat is a very strong propulsive internal rotator, so it powers that arm through on a throw, and that's why it gets tight when you throw and throw and throw. So it needs to be stretched out. And this lat can also limit the amount of external rotation. So if the internal rotators get tight, it limits the amount of external rotation. Just works just like that. Okay, moving on, the W, hip internal rotation stretch. We know that baseball players, and this study was done in 2010 on professional baseball players, that there is a loss of lead hip or stride leg hip internal rotation. So when you go to throw, and this is for pitchers, but this is also for position players too, no matter the sport, that when you go to throw and you lead out with that leg, as soon as that leg hits the ground, that hamstring and that glute are firing very strongly. Okay, so that hamstring and that glute. So specifically the glute is a massively powerful external rotator at the hip. So if those external rotators are getting used, kind of like the external rotators at the shoulder, if those external rotators are getting used, then it limits internal rotation. So it's common to see a loss of internal rotation on the stride leg hip of people who play baseball, of baseball players, baseball pitchers, softball players. And because of this, there is a significant injury risk at the shoulder if this is not addressed. So this is a good way to do it. Hold this stretch for 20 seconds. Again, do it 3 to 4 times. And here's a little bit of a step-by-step. So step 1, lie down on the ground. So if you're near the ground, lie down on the ground and try this out. So lie down on your back, spread your feet apart. I want you to bend your knees. So bend your knees, make sure your feet are set wider than your shoulders. Then you're going to bridge up. Then you're going to squeeze your knees together, and that's what that's going to do is that's going to internally rotate your thighs or your femurs, your hips. And then what you're going to do from there, then you're going to drop your butt down towards the ground, and that's going to further internally rotate your thighs. Okay? And you should feel a stretch kind of on the outside of the glute there, kind of rotating around into the groin. If you feel pain in your groin, your hips are probably too flexed, meaning your heels are probably too close to your butt. So walk your heels further away from your butt and you should be good. Okay, make sure your feet are wide or else you're not going to feel a stretch here. You can also do this with one leg. It looks exactly the same. So just, you don't need to bridge up. You just pretty much lie on the ground with your butt on the ground. Then you'd use one leg. You would use your right foot to push down on the outside of your opposite knee to push your hip into internal rotation there. And those are 2 good ways to improve internal rotation there yourself. The best way is probably to get it manually stretched, but that's an okay way. So all right, so that's enough of static stretching. So let's move on to dynamic warming up. So a dynamic warm up, it should target every area of the body in all planes of movement. Now let me show you what I mean. I would have loved to put these on video, but it would have taken more time to explain and click through them all. So real quick, this is rapid internal and external rotation on the left here. Kind of anchored a band on the fence, and I'm rapidly moving into external rotation, supporting the movement at my elbow. So I'm pulling the band out and then letting it come back in. So out, 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 out. For internal rotation, you just kind of anchor the band up higher, spin around, and then pull down into internal rotation. That warms up the back of your shoulder there. Internal rotation warms up the front of it. Rotational medicine ball toss warms up the core. You're pretty much rotating around that stride leg and warming up your core there. Warms up the hips a little bit. Lateral leg swings, a little bit more mobility, dynamic, more warming up explosively for the glutes, the groin muscles, the lower back into rotation and flexion. Scorpion kind of does the opposite. It moves you into rotation and extension at the low back there. So the scorpion, I'm kind of lying down with my arms spread out like a T, and then I kind of start the movement by lurching up with my left leg to touch my right hand, and then I rotate around, touch my left hand with my right leg, kind of looking like a scorpion there. So warms up pretty good portions of the body to move explosively there. So again, these aren't meant to improve your flexibility. They're just meant to warm you up after you've stretched out your tight areas. So before you throw, this is your plan. So make sure you write this down. You need to statically stretch or do mobility work to loosen up your tight areas. Then you will do a dynamic warm-up to warm your body up to perform explosively, because that's how ball players move. Then you're going to do warm-up throws into your work throws. Now, work throws can be long tossing. They can be a weighted ball regimen that you have that day. It can be going to practice, like the meat of your practice. It can be a game. Okay, those are your work throws. Warm-up throws are grabbing a partner, standing about 20 feet apart, and then gradually backing up. So you're getting out to 90 feet, getting out to 120 feet or so, but they're just nice lob throws. And then from those warm-up throws, you can work into your work throws. It's kind of like going to the gym. If you had planned on squatting 500 pounds, you wouldn't just walk into the gym and squat 500 pounds, right? You do a couple stretches, you do a couple lighter sets as well. You'd maybe do 200 pounds and 350 pounds and 450 pounds and then finally 500 pounds. So it's the same way. So that's what you should do before you throw. Write that down. Important stuff there. So after throwing, Again, we just use those muscles, okay? The muscles that we use to throw just got to work out, so they're going to be tight. So we need to statically stretch those commonly tight areas again. The external rotators at the shoulder, the lat, a internal rotator at the shoulder, the hip external rotators or the glutes. Some of the muscles on the anterior, the front part of the forearm and the elbow, they get tight as well. So we got to stretch all those tight areas out. You need to eat a semi-balanced diet, and I want you to bias it to greater protein intake. Now, we'll touch more on that soon. Drink lots of water, okay? You don't need the energy drinks. You don't need anything with high amounts of sugar. There's Gatorade out there. I know that there's a couple ones that offer, high electrolytes and not a whole lot of sugar. Just be careful with them. If you're eating a semi-balanced diet, you're going to have enough electrolytes in your body. Now, if it's a really hot day, sure, use those drinks to help supplement the replenishment of the electrolytes. But for the most part, you should be okay with just drinking a lot of water if you're eating correctly. Ice is kind of a touchy subject. I would say only ice if you are more sore than usual. Now, if you're doing the right stuff, if you do the stuff that I tell you to do here this evening, or this afternoon, you are going to be not more sore than usual. You're going to be doing the right stuff. You're not going to be more sore than usual. Therefore, you're not going to have to ice. Okay, so I'll touch a little bit more on that later. Okay, so moving on here, the Mark Pro electrical stimulation device is said to help you recover faster by improving your vascular system through muscle stimulation. Now, electrical muscle stimulation will do that. It can move toxins and things that we don't want in the muscle into the blood and then eventually out of your system. However, I'm not sure if the Mark Pro differs a significant lot from, say, the muscle stimulation device that I use in my clinic, or that an athletic trainer, chiropractor, or even a physician may have. It is said to use a different waveform. However, I'm not sure how that compares to the usual waveform and if they've actually been contrasted, and how legit of a study it was. So I'm not trying to knock this. I'm just saying if you haven't spent the money on it, you probably don't need it. You can get the same kind of treatment from an athletic trainer or a physical therapist like myself. I will say that this might help to speed up things a little bit, or it might not, but it can also be detrimental. One of my clients he bought this, he was using it. I examined him about, let's say, about a month ago or so, and he was really strong at the shoulders, had good mobility, and wasn't having any kind of pain. And then about a month later, he was complaining of pain in the shoulder, and I looked at his strength, specifically at the rotator cuff again, and he had no strength. I could push his arm right back down to his stomach and to the side, and he just didn't have any kind of strength. And he told me that he was using this Mark Pro device after every time that he worked out. So he was working his muscles hard, throwing, lifting, and then he would go home and he would use this. He would put the Mark Pro right on the shoulder and other areas of his body to help recover faster. And in essence, what it was doing is, so I'm not sure if you're not familiar with a muscle stimulation device, you put electrodes on your body, and then the electricity kind of makes your muscles jump up and down. It feels weird. It looks cool. And that contraction is thought to move stuff, move bad material out of the vascular system and out of the muscles. So in essence, but it's contracting the muscles. So this particular client was using this after every time that he worked out. So he wasn't giving his body a rest at all. He was actually continuing to work it out. So this was actually detrimental to him. So I told him to use it once, maybe twice a week at most, but you don't really need to do that if you're keeping up with like good flexibility practices. Maybe it might help a little bit speed up your recovery, but how significant that is, I don't know. Not too sure. I'm sure if you ask the Mark Pro guys, they'll tell you that it is significant. But and I'm not sure how expensive the devices are, but if you haven't spent the money on it, you don't necessarily need to. And you can get the same kind of electrical stimulation if you think that you really need it. I think this kind of muscle stimulation works best if you have muscles that are in spasm. The trick is knowing why they're in spasm. Are they over lengthened or are they just being too tight? So completely different there. So that is the Mark Pro. All right, let's change topics, switch gears to in-season conditioning. Switching gears in our Ducati here, and this pretty much stock image of from my keynote presentation on this Mac here is by no mistake. I left this on here because I thought it represents exactly how a baseball player and softball player move. They move with explosiveness. The Ducati, in my mind, represents explosiveness, power, speed, quickness, and that's how a ball player moves. So, conditioning. Here are some principles that you should live by, should train by, should teach others by. So make sure you write these down. Baseball players are anaerobic athletes, which means anaerobic means that no oxygen or very little is being used to create energy. Activities such as short sprints, lateral explosive drills, and throwing, they all use the anaerobic energy system, and these are exactly the kinds of things that a baseball and softball player do. So yes, anaerobic energy systems do create lactate or lactic acid, but there is no need to run to get the lactic acid out. And let me tell you why. Just to give you an example, I ran track and field when I ran track when I was in high school and a little bit in college. And my race, in addition to the 300 hurdles, was the 400-meter event. That's one lap around the track as fast as you can. It's known as the most grueling race in track. And on that last 100 meters, when you're rounding that fourth curve and coming down that home stretch, your legs feel like they weigh 300 pounds each. They are so full of blood and so full of lactate. They are solid, and it just feels like you're running with elephant legs. It's ridiculous. Now, in that one race, that one lap around the track, running as hard as I can, I produce more lactate in my legs than a baseball player probably does throughout their whole game. And what did I do to get the lactic acid out of my legs? Absolutely nothing. My body can take care of that. I can go home and sit on the couch and my body will get rid of that. I don't need to run to get the lactic acid out. It's okay to jog around a little bit, do some static stretching on those muscles that get tight, that feel tight, but you don't need to run. Now, running longer distances over 30 seconds is detrimental to the health of your arm as a baseball and softball player. There's a pretty good study in 2000, I think it was 2000, either 10 or 12. It was called the non-compatibility of strength and power training for endurance and power athletes. Pretty much the study said that power training helps endurance athletes, which you think it might, and that endurance training does not help the power athlete, and that's what a baseball and softball player are. They're power athletes. They move with power, explosively and quickly. So running longer distances, and actually endurance training reduced the force output of the power athlete. So what we want to do with our conditioning for power athletes is we want to increase their power and a quicker rate of force development. So how quickly they can turn that force into something useful. So the drill should be short, you should give max effort, and you should rest until you feel recovered. So if we switch gears to pitchers just a little bit, just to give you the extreme, a pitcher, no matter if you're baseball or softball, the work to rest ratio is 1 second of max effort to 20 seconds of rest. Now, training this way might be a little bit extreme. That would say if you were working hard for just 3 seconds, that you would need to rest for a minute. I think that's a little bit extreme. So let's do this to keep it super simple. So make sure you write this down. Don't sprint or perform max effort movements for more than 30 seconds, because if you do, it's going to start to break your body down. It's going to wear you out. You're going to start to get injured. You're going to start to hurt. And then work or sprint again when you feel close to 100% rested. Okay? Again, the goal is to create power. It's not to exhaust your lungs. We're not trying to tire you out. We're trying to explosively fatigue your muscles and create power endurance. I know that there's probably some coaches, maybe even some parents out there that aren't, they're not agreeing with me here. You don't agree with what I'm saying. You feel that if your athlete needs to be able to play the whole game, and sometimes that can be maybe even 2.5 to 3 hours at some points in time. So they need to have endurance. This is true. They need to have endurance, but they don't need cardiovascular endurance. They need power endurance. They need to be able to produce a powerful movement over and over and over and over and over and over again for 2 hours. That's the kind of endurance they need. They need power endurance. So keep it simple with your training. So you can alter the work time and the rest time to create a greater training effect, such as if you're doing 10-second sprints, that might be like 100 meters, and then you're used to resting for a minute. You can kind of knock that rest time down to, instead of 60 seconds, you can knock it down to 50 seconds, and that might help you kind of speed up this whole process just a little bit. Again, we got to watch how quickly we're fatiguing the cardiovascular system, because we don't want to do that. So you should do sprints and plyometric and agility drills 2 days per week. So if you are new to this kind of training, if you're new to sprinting and doing plyometrics, like jumping up on boxes and that kind of stuff, do not do it the day before a game. Do not start it the day before a game for at least 2 weeks or so, because your legs are going to feel like jello. So if you're doing this and you're in season, start about 2 or 3 days before your game to try this out, because your legs are going to be kind of fatigued. You're going to feel slower when you go to perform. So you want to give your body time to recuperate, so that when you do have to compete in a game, you're fresh. Okay, so make sure you do it 2 days per week, at least in season. Off season, you can do it a little bit more. You can probably do plyometrics 3 to 4 days a week as well. So here are just a couple drills. So I did take some videos here. Hopefully they work. I'm going to hit play on the top one. This is called a pro agility drill. Good. So that's 5 yards one way, 5 yards the other way, and then all the way across. So that whole thing took about 8 seconds. So maybe we'll rest him for like 30 seconds, 45 seconds or so, until he feels like he's recovered. Now you want to monitor that rest time. If that rest time starts, if your athlete is like, oh man, I'm still like exhausted, I don't think I can do more right now at my highest level output. You want to monitor that. You want to monitor the time he needs to rest and how he feels, and you want to monitor the time it takes to complete this drill. So if that time drill drops by 10% or so, or you might even want to give him 20%. If he drops below that 20% marker, then you're saying, all right, your legs are shot right now, and you need to rest longer, and maybe you call it a day after that. So this next one is a lateral skater jump. So I'm jumping side to side. I'm working on my stability, which is hard, but I'm also working on my lateral explosiveness. So I'm jumping further and farther with more aggression, more explosiveness. Still working on my stability, but trying to explode off of those legs. Okay. We do know that lateral explosiveness is correlated to a higher ball velocity. So we want to have good lateral explosiveness. So practice a lateral jumping drill like that, and that should help to increase your velocity. So maybe in a full routine, you would do the top exercise there, the pro agility drill, pro shuttle. Maybe you would do that 8 times, and then maybe you do this lateral skater jump 8 times as well. So maybe like 6 jumps off of each leg 8 times, and then see how you feel. but that's how you should train conditioning as a baseball or softball player with explosiveness. All right, so moving on to nutrition. We're keeping it simple with ice cream. Who out there likes ice cream? I'm actually not a huge ice cream fan. My wife could probably eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and snacks in between. She absolutely loves ice cream. My stomach doesn't tolerate, well, not my stomach. I just feel sluggish after I eat ice cream. Not sure why. There's some evidence out there that maybe milk products are kind of inflammatory to the human body because they're meant for cows and not humans, but I don't know that much about that, but I just know that it makes me feel a little bit sluggish. So I try to stay away from ice cream. But anyway, moving away from ice cream, let's talk protein. So I want to tell you guys a little bit of story about Kurt. Kurt was a Division II baseball player that came to me with complaints of medial and posterior elbow pain about 2, maybe 3 winters ago. So he had inside and back of his, and he had pain on the inside and back of his elbow. Kurt had begun some sprint training with his college team in preseason. His sprint training consisted of running a few poles in the outfield to get warmed up, get loosened up, and then on the track, he and his fellow pitchers would run repeat 400-meter sprints, the sprints that I used to run. So these sprints would take in upwards of 60 seconds to complete. So what do you know about this? What did I tell you about sprinting over 30 seconds? It's detrimental, right? So that's the only thing that he changed. He was still lifting, still throwing, still eating relatively well. He had good total arc of motion at his shoulders, no tightness in his forearms. He had very good mechanics, from what my mechanics people told me. So I wasn't worried about that. And literally, that's the only thing that he changed. He added in more running, which is okay if you're doing running the right way, but he was doing it the wrong way. So I stressed to Kurt the importance of getting enough of protein, because protein is the building blocks of repairing damaged tissue. And he was damaging his tissue all right. He was doing the wrong kind of conditioning. So at the time, Kurt weighed about 175 pounds, and he was only having about 90 grams of protein per day. How many grams of protein are you having per day? Are you recording it? So my general recommendation is to have 1 gram of protein per 1 pound of body weight per day. So I told Kurt to pretty much double up his protein intake, and within the week, his elbow pain was completely gone. Just from intaking more protein, just from giving his body what it needed, from repairing all the breakdown that he was doing. Now, he didn't change the way that he was conditioning, because he said he had to, because of the way his coach wanted him to do that. His coach was a firm believer in more cardiovascular types of conditioning, I guess. But he was just pretty much ripping his body apart. So how many of you increase your training workload and forget to increase your nutrition or your calories? Yeah, you might work out more, and you might say, I'm hungry more, so then you come home and you eat like junk food and snacks, whatever really quick to eat. And that goes for all of us. Okay, we all kind of at some point in time fall victim to that. But really, if you're trying to take baseball or softball seriously, and you're really trying to protect your arm for the future, you need to put a little bit more effort in. So how many of you increase your training workload and you forget, or you don't eat the right stuff? You're not intaking enough. So here are some a quick list of protein sources. So we got eggs, we got lean beef, ground turkey, ground chicken, pork tenderloin, cottage cheese, yogurt, especially the Greek kind. Fish is an excellent source of lean protein. So I try to have most of my protein from whole food sources like those that are listed there. And then I supplement in more protein with a whey protein shake. Now, I like this brand a whole lot, Optimum Nutrition. I wish they told me to plug them, so maybe they could give me a couple dollars on the side, but they're not. I just love this. It's their gold standard natural 100% whey. It's natural. It doesn't have any extra sugars in there. It's not disgustingly sweet at all. It tastes really, really good. I like the vanilla. I mix in a little bit of powdered peanut butter in there. Sometimes powdered chocolate peanut butter. I think it's called P2B or PB2 on Amazon. It's really, really good. So try to get most of your protein from whole food sources and then supplement with whey protein. So a little bit more on protein. If you are trying to gain weight, use the weight that you want to weigh, say around 200 pounds, and eat that many grams of protein per day. So in this example, 200 grams. Now it might seem like a lot, but you must be training while doing this, because if you're having all of those grams of protein and all those calories that come along with it, if you're not training hard, you're going to start to store those, and those stores are eventually going to turn to excess calories that you don't need, and then probably eventually fat. So we definitely want to avoid that. So just to give you guys a quick example of what happened in my life, when I went to college, I went in weighing about 165, 170, I think, maybe from 165 to 175. And then before Christmas break, before I came home for Christmas break, I weighed 200 pounds, and I was eating 200 grams of protein per day. I was getting really into bodybuilding and that kind of stuff. Pretty much you have to eat for the weight that you want to be when it comes to gaining weight. Okay, maybe losing weight as well, but definitely for gaining weight. So you must be training aggressively while doing this. Now, a little caveat here. Your total protein calories cannot exceed 35% of the total calories for the day. So says the Academy of Natural Sciences, in order to keep you safe, keep you healthy. So in a little bit, I'm going to tell you where you can get a plug and chug formula. It makes it super simple to figure out how much 35% of your total calories is. And it pretty much, you input the kind of protein you're having, you input the weight you want to weigh, the grams of protein per serving, the calories per serving, and then it spits out the total amount of calories that you can have for the day, and then the total amount of calories, the total number of servings that you can have for that particular protein source. Makes it super easy. Plug and chug, and you get answers. Keeping it simple, keeping it safe. All right, so moving on, creatine. What the heck is creatine? I know that a bunch of you have probably heard about it. Creatine is a substance that is found in vertebrates, in humans, and helps to supply energy to mainly muscle tissue. Now, it can either be produced by the body or supplied through the diet, and I'm going to tell you that it is not massively produced by the body. So you need to get it through your diet. But what is it really? What the heck is creatine? Well, baseball and softball players create explosive energy. They move quick, right? We've already covered this. So the baseball and softball player's body create explosive energy through the ATP system. So I'm sorry to go back to biology class, but I'm not going to stay long on it, but just to kind of recap, getting a school lesson here. ATP PC stands for adenosine triphosphate phosphocreatine system. So if you've already been in high school before, you probably, actually, I'm not sure what age kids are learning this now, but here's your lesson. So for the first 10 to 15 seconds of maximum energy expenditure, this is the energy system that we use, and that is where baseball and softball players live. 10 to 15 seconds at max, except if you're running maybe from the batter's box to third base or a inside the park home run. You might be stretching that a little bit, but generally that's where you live at as a ball player. So energy is created from the breakdown of ATP. So ATP is broken down to ADP, or adenosine diphosphate, and a phosphagen, and this releases energy. So if it's available, phosphocreatine gets broken down into phosphagen and creatine. So the free phosphagen rebinds. It kind of floats up there and rebinds with ADP, forming ATP again. Guess what? You have a new ATP. This ATP can be broken down and used for more energy by the ball player. And it continues as long as phosphocreatine is available. So it's not being produced by the body a whole lot. You got to supplement it. So supplementing creatine by your diet increases the body's store of phosphocreatine to use for energy creation. And I'm sorry I didn't put the reference up here, but it is documented. Okay? So, which person do you want to be? Do you want to be coming to the competition and in the first couple innings wiping your brow because you're hot and sweaty and tired because your tank is empty? Or do you want to be like this guy on the bottom who is fired up? He is pumped up. Maybe it's the ninth inning and he is still going strong, man. I don't know if he's on creatine or not, but he could be. He is pumped up. So you want to come with your tanks as full as you can get them. You don't want to ride into this competition, these competitions on E. Okay, you want to have stores. It'll help with your power endurance. So why should you use creatine? Again, it's known to increase strength, increase fat-free mass, and raise anabolic hormones. This is just one study by Rawson. There are plenty of other studies out there that they looked at professional runners, professional cyclers. They looked at jumping athletes. And when supplementing with creatine, vertical jumps have increased pounds per square inch on the pedal. Distance runners were even covering more ground while using creatine. So it's out there. I only put one piece of evidence here, but it is out there. So the dosage, make sure you write this down. You need a loading phase. You need to have 20 grams a day for 5 days. So if you're getting the powder form, you're going to take 20 grams a day for 5 days. Now a good way, so absorption-wise, what they say is good is getting 5 grams every hour for 4 hours. Might seem like a pain in the butt until you look at the best way to get absorption of this creatine is 1 gram every 30 minutes for 10 hours. Holy heck, what a pain in the butt. If you're short on time, just do the whole 20 grams at once. But if you're trying to get the best out of this, use 5 grams every hour for 4 hours. You just have to do it for the first week, and then your loading phase is done until you stop it and start it again. So after that, then you're going to take 3 to 5 grams every day. Now, just a tip: don't take your creatine powder and mix it in a drink because it just gets kind of covered all over the bottle, all over the glass, and then you kind of have to rinse out the bottle a couple times to make sure that you're getting all of the creatine. Take that scooper, scoop out 5 grams, and then just toss it in your mouth, and then take a swallow of your drink, and then just swish it around and swallow. That way you're making sure you're getting all those 5 grams in. Okay, so is it safe? It sure is. So this creatine in this systematic review was studied for at least 10 years as it relates to exercise and sports, and they found that there is no progressive effect to cause negative consequences to kidney function and health in already healthy individuals when proper dosing recommendations are followed. So those dosing recommendations that you wrote down just a slide ago, those are the proper dosing recommendations that this group advocates for. What I would do is I would cycle creatine use. So while you're in season, I would use it. While you're off season and not in your main competing season, I would cycle it 1 month on, 1 month off, 1 month on, 1 month off. Now, you do have to do a loading phase again for the first week there every time you stop and restart again. But, you can do it, okay? It is safe. All right, moving into kinetic chain efficiency, how the ankle joint connects to the knee joint, and the knee joint connects all the way down to the wrist joint. So all of these are connected, okay? Not just the ones that are highlighted here, but every joint in the body is connected, especially with the throw. So, and this kinetic chain gives us a very strong rationale for strength training, for arm care and arm health. Now let's get into this. So if any of you are having pain right now or know someone who's having pain and you asked them where they were having pain at, they'd probably say they have pain right between these red lines here, right in the deceleration and follow through phase as they release the ball. Now there's a very important reason for that. Now some people will complain of pain at this elbow, or where the arm is in late cocking or maximum external rotation phase. There's a good reason for that. It could be tight lats that limit your external rotation and the inside part of your elbow hurts. Your shoulder could still hurt there, but a majority of people that have pain in their shoulder or elbow have it in this deceleration phase of a throw. And this is not just for pitchers or anything, this is for everybody that throws, okay? Right towards this end phase, the deceleration and follow through phases. So if there's a lot of issues that happen here, if pain is occurring here, we should definitely take a lot of stock into the deceleration mechanics. Okay, I am not a mechanics expert, as I told you before. I have people that do this for me, that correlate kind of what I find on exam to how they look with their throwing mechanics. And this is what I'm going to say here is true not just for pitchers, but for everyone that throws a ball. Okay, your mechanics should look pretty similar. So we want a soft, flexed, or a bent elbow there. So we can see the guy on the left, Cliff Lee, he has a bent or a flexed elbow. The guy on the right here, Tommy Hanson, I believe is his name, as I was told, his elbow is pretty straight. So moving on, we want a pronated forearm. So if you hold your arm straight out in front of you, right towards the computer screen here, and you turn your palm facing up towards the ceiling, so straighten your elbow and turn your palm facing up. That is called supination, like you're holding a cup of soup or a bowl of soup. Now if you turn and pour that soup over onto the ground, so your palm is facing the ground, that's called pronation. So we want a pronated forearm. We want a pronated forearm when we throw. So not really sure if any of these guys are really pronating that well. They both look kind of in a neutral grip. Maybe Hanson on the right has a little bit more supination than Cliff Lee on the left there, but can't be too sure, so I'll stay quiet on that. Next, we want full trunk rotation and flexion around your stride leg hip. Okay, guy on the left, full trunk rotation, flexing around that stride leg hip. Guy on the right, a little bit of flexion, not a whole lot. Definitely not rotating around that stride leg hip a whole bunch. It's pretty much just upper body. It's pretty much just his shoulder is whipping across his body. Yikes. Okay, next we want a trail leg whip. It's not really a whip, but it is kind of like a kick out there, so that leg kind of helps decelerate force. Cliff Lee on the left has it. Guy on the right, leg is not nearly kicking out there at all. So you can imagine that leg kick being like the wheels on an Indy car. So if you've ever seen an Indy car crash and the wheels go flying off everywhere, well, they're designed to do that because they're designed to take momentum away from the driver, to take it away from the body of the car, to protect the driver. If those wheels stayed on, they would just pull the car wherever, because the car is light, okay, and those wheels are heavy-ish, and they would just pull the body around. So the fact that those wheels come disconnected and break away is meant to happen. So we can't disconnect the limbs on our body, but we can kind of spread our limbs out a little bit, like what we can do here with the legs, and kind of dissipate that force away from the shoulder, away from the elbow. Okay, Cliff Lee, while he had his bumps and bruises playing, I believe is still playing. Hanson here on the right is no longer playing because of injury. So definitely get your mechanics checked. Now, if we're placing a lot of effort, a lot of focus on your deceleration mechanics, we should definitely look at the muscle contractions that help produce deceleration of the body as well. So a concentric muscle contraction is when the muscle shortens. So if we look at the image here, we reference the bicep muscle is shortening when you're pulling that weight up towards your shoulder. So when you're flexing your beach muscles, when you're pulling that weight up, that's a shortening contraction of the bicep. Okay, and when we lower that weight down, so when we straighten our elbow, the bicep and the elbow flexors are lengthening, but that muscle is still contracting. That is called an eccentric muscle contraction. And I call these the deceleration and the arm safety muscles. So the concentric muscle contractions are the go fast muscles, like the lat, the teres major. They help propel your body forward, and then the muscles, the external rotators on the hip, the external rotators of the shoulder, they contract eccentrically, and they are your deceleration and your arm safety muscles. Those muscles are lengthening while they're still contracting to slow down that force. Okay, so we know from the literature that if there is a loss of strength in those muscles that work eccentrically, we get injury. And this can be avoidable. So Trachis did a study in 2008. He looked at 23 pitchers aged 14 to 17 years old. That could be your age range. So 12 players had shoulder pain in the prior season and 11 did not. Those 12 had significantly lower strength in the middle trapezius and the supraspinatus, so one of the muscles on the rotator cuff, and increased strength into internal rotation. So the authors hypothesized that the weakened eccentric posterior shoulder muscles cannot tolerate the stress placed on it by the demands of the strong propulsive internal rotators. Okay. Another study by Byram in 2010 looked at 144 professional baseball pitchers in one organization over 5 years. 50 players had 70 injuries in one organization at the shoulder and the elbow. So 50 players had 70 injuries at the shoulder and the elbow. 42 were treated non-operatively, and 28 were treated surgically, which meant lots of time off. Maybe they didn't even play again, who knows. The common thread among those treated with surgical intervention was preseason weakness of the glenohumeral joint, or the shoulder external rotators, and the supraspinatus, which are all the posterior rotator cuff. So, which are all working eccentrically to slow your arm down in that deceleration phase. One more. Tyler in 2014 looked at 101 high school pitchers over 4 years. There were 19 shoulder and 9 elbow injuries. Major injuries, which were defined as missing 3 games or more, were associated with preseason supraspinatus weakness. Supraspinatus, part of that posterior rotator cuff, externally rotates the shoulder. If it is weak, which most likely it is, it's weak eccentrically, then you are doomed. You are asking for injury. Those are eccentrically working muscles. They have to be trained a specific way. So this is the deceleration and follow-through phases where part of that rotator cuff works eccentrically. Part of those muscles that control the scapula are working eccentrically here. But this isn't where it starts at the shoulder anyway. So we take that away. It really starts right here. So the shoulder is moving from an externally rotated position right here, and then it ends in a internally rotated and horizontally moved across your body. So right as that forearm is going to rotate up, so right as this forearm here is going to rotate up and hit this red line, right then is when the shoulder muscles, so you're moving from a position of external rotation. When this forearm hits this red line, it's neutral, and then past here, it's all moving into internal rotation. So those external rotators are lengthening as the shoulder is moving into internal rotation, and they're contracting, they're slowing the speed of your arm down. Okay, it has to happen. The same thing's happening at your elbow. Your elbow is bent, and then your elbow straightens. Okay, there is a concentric muscle force at the tricep, but then a eccentric muscle force of the elbow flexors, also including the bicep, eccentric muscle force is occurring to slow down that rapid action of the elbow extending. Okay, it just happens and it continues on. So let's take this one step further. So in both of these images, if we look at the blue lines here, the first blue line that you see on the left, in the image on the top and the image on the bottom, the blue line is facing us. The blue line represents the orientation of the pelvis. So right now the pelvis is open with that first blue line. Now when that heel hits the ground of that stride leg those hamstrings and those glutes, those glute max, those massive external rotators, they start to activate. Now guess what? So those external rotators are activated because your lead leg is landing in a externally rotated position. And then the pelvis begins to close down on your hip, on your thigh, and it produces relative hip internal rotation. Hope you can see that, okay, on both the image on the top and the bottom. The pitcher's pelvis is facing us, and then it faces home plate. Now this is true for pitchers and position players, okay? This happens, okay? So those muscles on the hip, both the hamstring and the glute, the hip external rotators, they are responsible for starting the slowdown process because those hip is moving from an externally rotated position to a internally rotated position. The pelvis causes that. The orientation of the pelvis causes that. So those muscles moving from external rotation to internal rotation, they're lengthening as it moves that way. So they are performing a eccentric muscle contraction. Here's a study that shows this by Campbell in 2010. Phase 3 is where the stride foot contacts is from stride foot contact to ball release, and then phase 4 is from ball release to a half second of release. Highlighted in red is the glute max, okay, that massive external rotator. This 100% over here in phase 3, it's greater than 100%, represents a very high muscle force. And since we know the action of the muscle, we know that it's lengthening around the pelvis, that is a eccentric muscle contraction of the glute. Same with the one outlined in black, the biceps femoris, which is a hamstring muscle. Very high activation in both phase 3 and phase 4. Look at those activations, okay? They are responsible for slowing your body down. So, the deceleration follow-through process as regarding to naming where the mechanics are happen at the very end, but the muscle processes, they don't even start right here. No. They start right here. Right as you put that lead leg foot down, okay? Right as you put that lead leg foot down, that's where the eccentric muscle contractions are starting. That is half of your delivery. Isn't that crazy? So when I refer to when people have pain in the late cocking phase and maximal external rotation, either in their shoulder and their elbow, they are in the eccentric muscle phase of the throw. Okay, you've already propelled your body forward during the wind-up and early cocking, and then as soon as that stride leg hits, boom, that's when eccentric muscle forces start. So, and then they creep up your leg, across your back, onto your shoulder, something like this. So as one body part speeds up, the body part right behind it has to slow down. So your trail leg gives you the push. As soon as that lead leg lands, so that trail leg creates that power, lead leg helps to transfer that force up your core, so your core is rotating fast, your shoulder is going to be rotating fast. But as soon as that stride leg hits the ground and passes its concentric force up to the core, that stride leg hamstring and glute are firing eccentrically to slow your body down. You speed up and you slow down. So it crosses the back, moves on to the back of the shoulder. And I apologize for the picture in the middle here. I couldn't find a good shot of a shot directly from the back. So these arrows should be on the back, but just to represent this, from that stride leg hip, crosses the back, up onto the back of the shoulder, out the elbow flexors, out the back of the forearm as well. So that is how eccentric muscle contractions work. So for the baseball player, not all strengthening is created equal. Muscles that are meant to work eccentrically, you cannot strengthen them concentrically and expect to get the same kind of results. Okay, it's as much of a motor learning or a muscle memory connection as you are actually doing the strengthening. Okay, so here's some cases to illustrate that. So this is a case of a 15-year-old left-handed baseball pitcher. He developed a painful pinch on the back of his shoulder from hard preseason pitching. Not sure why he was doing hard preseason pitching, but he failed PT with another provider for 8 weeks, focusing on concentric strengthening for the rotator cuff and scapular muscles. He had pain and pinching throwing at 90 feet during a return to throwing program. He was referred to me. I put him on an eccentric strength training program. That's the only thing that I did. And after 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, he could throw 180 feet without pain or pinching. Just after 2 weeks of performing some eccentric training exercises. At a 3-week follow-up, it was found that he could not throw past 180 feet. So he had another MRI with contrast, which showed that he had a large slap tear, and he was referred for surgery. So not a super happy outcome. But what is encouraging is this kid came to me already with a large slap tear. I increased his pain-free throwing distance by 200 feet by just putting him on an eccentric strength training program, and that is what is significant. So I'm not saying if you have a large slap tear right now that you can do this and you'd be completely fine, but maybe this will help prevent a slap tear. So a slap tear is a tear of the labrum, the ring of cartilage in the shoulder, which if it's torn significantly, you have to get that surgically reconstructed. But just imagine if you're doing a proper program, you can avoid this. You can avoid that. So that's what's significant about this. Increased his pain-free throwing distance by 200 feet with a large tear in his labrum that needed surgery. Crazy. What can it do if you don't have any problems with your body now and you prepare yourself the right way, okay? Start to think about that. This is case number 3. Is a 12-year-old right-handed baseball player with a 2-week history of shoulder pain throwing in the backyard with his dad. I gave the 12-year-old an eccentric exercise routine to be performed 1 time a day, and unknown at the time, his father did the same routine. So his father reported a 10-year history of shoulder pain. He was a former player that was now re-aggravated because he was throwing in the backyard with his son. And just 1 week later, his father and son had no pain. That's awesome. I mean, I love these kinds of stories. His father said that I haven't felt this great throwing in years, and my son looked like he was throwing harder as the game went on. At a 4-month follow-up on a special arm care program, it revealed no re-aggravation of the pain. So think about that. Crazy. So can you see the importance of a great arm care program? I mean, what could a great arm care program do for you? You know, for parents, let a great arm care program give you confidence and peace of mind that your athlete will be prepared and safe to perform within the demands of the sport. And for college and pro guys, a great arm care program will help you prolong your career, enhance your performance, and keep you playing longer and healthier. Hopefully, keeping on moving up to the next level and earning all kinds of accolades. Okay? So I want to introduce you to a great arm care program. I want to introduce you to my Monster Arm Care program. Now, the Monster Arm Care program is a video-based exercise routine. Think like P90X and those kinds of trainings. It's meant to prevent injury in the baseball and softball player. You can access it anytime on your computer or a mobile device, right from your phone, Android, Apple, so you can take it to the gym or the field to make sure that you're doing the exercises properly. So you'll get access to a membership website where all of the videos will be there for you, telling you exactly what to do. The program will take 25 to 30 minutes per day, performed 5 days per week. It'll take a little bit longer in the beginning because you have to learn it. There is a little bit of a learning curve. But once you learn it, honestly, you can complete this in 25 to 30 minutes, meant to be performed Monday through Friday. It is safe and progressive for all ages and skill levels, and I know this because those are the kinds of guys and gals that I work with day in and day out. It is safe and progressive. I believe that this is the perfect supplement to your throwing instruction and your strength training routine. You can just add it to the beginning of it, add it to the end of it. It's perfect. It fits right in. It's not going to alter your strength training routine. It's going to enhance it. It's not going to alter your throwing or your pitching instruction. It's going to enhance it. So here's what you're going to get. You're going to get access to the Eccentric Strength Training Program and Protocol. There are 10 exercises to be performed on a Monday and Wednesday and Friday, including the lower body, the core, and the forearm and the shoulder. Then there's 8 more exercises that are more intensive on the upper body, the shoulder, arm, and the forearm. And this is going to give you all the reps, all the sets, the rest times, and how and when to progress the eccentric strength training. This is the bulk of the program. Next, you're going to get a full-length dynamic warm-up routine for the upper body, core, and lower body. And then you're going to get 5 separate videos detailing step-by-step instructions on how to perform each movement properly for maximum effectiveness. Pretty cool. Post-practice and game routines, you're going to get access to static stretching instruction for targeted areas on the body for the baseball and softball player of the upper body, the core, the lower body. There's going to be 4 videos that are covering 10 targeted stretches. We're going to delve into if you should ice after playing, kind of the rationale behind why you should and maybe why you should not. And the rationale there is constantly changing. I'm going to add in this technique called voodoo banding. I'm going to show you how to do it, maybe why you want to do it, or maybe why you want to avoid it as well, based on your particular condition. So, but that is coming soon. Again, we're going to go a little bit more in depth with nutrition. There's going to be video detailing protein intake for maximum muscle gain. Here is where you're going to get your plug and chug formula. It's a PDF to figure out exactly the amount that you need to eat per day to stay safe. You know, that maximum 35% calories. Again, it's super easy. You put in your body weight, kind of protein you're eating, the grams of protein per serving, calories, and it spits it all out for you. Super simple, all inside the program. There's going to be another video detailing creatine intake recommendations and more rationale for use and kind of what brands may be the best. There's a part on mental performance training. So I recorded interviews with Steve Springer of Quality at Bats. He's one of the Toronto Blue Jays performance coaches and a scout for the Blue Jays as well as of right now. So Steve Springer of QualityAtBats.com. We talk mental skills training for hitters and baseball in general. I also recorded an interview with Alan Jagger of JaggerSports.com, talking mental skills for pitchers and baseball in general. Both of these guys are great guys, and they honestly are just out there to help you. And mentally, baseball it's a physical sport for sure, but it's more. There's a huge mental part in there. If you don't have your head straight, you're going to be limited. So take the mental part of your training seriously and let these guys give you a jump on your competition. Then there's going to be a baseball and softball conditioning program, for all player types, for pitchers, position players. There are 14 different sprint and agility routines. There is 7 weeks worth of conditioning exercises if you're doing them at 2 times per week, and I promise this list will grow. I'm going to keep adding more and more and more in here to vary this up so you're not always going through the same stuff every 2 months. We're going to get into some pitcher specifics, so there's going to be a video explaining why exactly overuse causes problems in the baseball and softball player, my current modifications to the baseball pitch counts. I do believe personally that there are some holes in the pitch counts, and if we shore them up, if we stitch them up, that there are not going to be any holes there, obviously, and then you're going to be protected even more. I'm going to show you how to use the Monster Arm Care program between your starts and relief outings. No matter if you're a pro guy, a youth guy, if you're in high school, and I'm going to show you how to modify it on the days that you have games if you're still performing it, which I would recommend. Then I'm going to give you guys return to play programs, age-specific return to throwing programs from 7 to 9 years old, 10 to 12, all the way up through above 15. Now, there is a specific program that you should follow as you're going back into preseason. So if you're off season right now and you're moving back into preseason, this is very timely, or you can use this for when you go back to in season. There's specific amounts and distances that you should be throwing to ramp up your arm. You don't just want to go back in to the season completely cold, having not thrown a whole lot. There's a specific program that you need to follow to get your arm in shape again. It is an art. Okay, you have to take it very seriously. There's also, I'm going to give you guys post-injury return to throwing program. So after you're injured, a post or a return to batting program when you're coming back from injury, depending if it's your lead arm or your trail arm. And then we're going to touch on the no-nos of throwing mechanics, some specific positions that you want to make sure that you can avoid. And you can check these out on yourself by getting looked at in slow motion, or just having it and then being able to look at the angles yourself. So you guys are also going to get access to a private Facebook group where you can share ideas about training, arm care, videos of pitching. So you can upload your videos of your pitching mechanics, ask for help with that from people pretty much all around the world. This group is growing. And to me, this is priceless. You can talk to people and get explanations and answers from a lot of different people. This is priceless, and this is for members of the program only. And finally, there is a 60-day money-back guarantee. Now, I cannot guarantee that this program will cure your pain. I'd be a jerk if I said that, because there are many things that I cannot really examine from afar. I just need to get you in front of me. So I cannot guarantee that this will cure your pain, although it has for a lot of people. So I do guarantee that this program is the perfect prehab and injury prevention training for you or your son or your daughter or your athlete. I do guarantee that you have not performed this combination of exercises nor heard much of this specific information before. I do guarantee that if you use this program as prescribed, you will feel, move, and perform better than your competition. And I guarantee that if you are not satisfied with this program, you can return it for a full refund, plus double your money back if you ask. And that's how confident I am that this program will work for you or your son or your daughter to keep them safe. That's how confident I am that this will work. All right, so wrapping this up, you will get access to the full eccentric strength training program that has worked for all of the other people that you've heard about in these cases. You're going to get a full dynamic warm-up routine plus all the specific videos explaining exactly how they need to be done. Post-practice and game routines, including static stretching, which ones you should be doing and how often, and icing and voodoo banding. Nutrition strategies made simple. We're trying to keep it super simple. Mental performance training from the experts in baseball. Some baseball and softball specific conditioning. Pitcher specifics, the pitch count guide for baseballers. Training program between starts. So implementing the Monster Arm program between starts and relief efforts, and mechanical positions to avoid. A return to throwing and return to batting programs for after injury and preseason as well. And access to a private Facebook community, which I believe is priceless. So there is a version of this program that I do sell online right now for $127. This is all included in that program. But I am not going to ask you to pay that right now. I am only asking a one-time fee of $57 with a 60-day money back, double your money back guarantee. You just have to ask me. So click the button below, and that should take you to a checkout page where you can fill in your details and get immediate access to the Monster Arm Care program, so you can start protecting your body today, or you can start reversing your pain that you're having while throwing today. Don't wait any longer. Nip this in the bud, take care of this now, and take care of your arm as long as you're playing. And then pass this information along down the road as well to friends and to family members. Okay, this is the best kind of information you can get right now. So for $57, make the investment in yourself. I know that there is, or make the investment in your son or your daughter, make the investment in your athletes. A lot of athletes, a lot of parents are quick to buy the new shiny object, the bat, the expensive bat, the expensive glove, the expensive batting gloves. But I tell you what, that those aren't going to get you through the tough times. This training program is an investment in yourself. It's an investment in your athletes that will help prevent injury and keep them playing so they can utilize those bats. They can use those gloves. Okay? Spend the money on the things that matter first, and then all those other things will be in addition to this. Spend the money on the things that matter. So again, click the button below to get immediate access to the Monster Arm Care program. It's a 60-day money back guaranteed. Double your money back if you are not satisfied at all. And I will see you guys inside the program.